We are Tottenham TV. A new era has officially begun. Thomas Frank has done his first press conference as Spurs manager and about to take charge of his first game tomorrow, 3 p.m. Reading away. I keep forgetting the car leasing stadium or something like that. The Majetski Stadium.
Majetski, yeah, it's always going to be the Majetski. Come on.
But yeah, exciting times. A lot was said in the press conference. We're going to go through the quotes. The predicted lineups are back as well, and I am gassed for this era to be upon us, man.
Before we start with the quotes, just like a general feeling of seeing Frank in his press conference, how how he answered questions, body language, that kind of stuff. Any kind of thoughts?
Well, if I hone into my expertise of body language, I think yeah, he looked good. He looked positive. He looked fresh. He looked full of enthusiasm and excitement, as every manager does in their first press conference. Yeah, I was quite happy with it. He covered a lot of the topics that we all wanted to hear. And yeah, I think he just looked like raring to go, really.
Yeah, he looked comfortable. I wouldn't say he was as charismatic as someone like Ange, cracking jokes all the time.
You always have to go back to Ange Postecoglou.
Well, what do we have to compare it to? Well, that's kind of that's the assessment we're making. But he definitely seems comfortable, determined. Made a few jokes, one about Arsenal, and he also made a joke about 5 managers being sacked last time when he took over at Brentford last. So there's a few little quips in there from him. I don't think it's going to be like judging for his first press conference. Obviously, he's clearly a very good person with people, as he says. Is he going to be as charismatic within the press? It doesn't have to be. It's not what he's going to be judged on, but probably not. But that's okay. But look, I think it was positive. He kind of got his message across very clearly, and yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there.
Look, the reality is, if he does well on the pitch, people are going to love his press conferences. If he does poorly on the pitch, people are going to hate his press conferences. Ange was great in the press, but once he started losing games, everyone's had so many problems with all of his press conferences. And me personally, I always looked at his press conferences and he gave me a bit of that belief back, even if I wasn't on board with what I was seeing on the pitch. But I think all in all, from a general perspective, I think it all depends on what happens on the pitch of how the press conference are perceived, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would just say he's just not as interesting as watching him as it was Ange, but that doesn't really matter. Then what matters is the content. What matters is what he's saying, not how he says it. And I think there's some interesting stuff in there.
Yeah, look, I really enjoyed the press conference. 20 minutes, which we'll get into the quotes now. I mean, the first one we're going to cover. First of all, let's just take it back to that Arsenal joke for a second, because what he did say in the press conference, he says, "There's one thing for certain. One certainty, we're going to lose games." And I was like, oh, well, that's not really filling with much confidence. But yeah, it was obviously a joke. And he said the two teams...
No, that wasn't a joke. The joke was the Arsenal.
Yeah. The two teams that haven't lost, the Preston and Arsenal. And then he was like, well, Arsenal, I mean, I've already lost. I've already made one mistake because I can't be mentioning Arsenal, basically, is what he was saying.
Which is good self-awareness, at least. Maybe he gets it. Like Ange didn't get the North London derby, like people accuse him. But yeah, that was a funny moment from Thomas Frank. Yeah, obviously, that quote in isolation, there's one thing that's guaranteed, that we will lose matches. And, it's not a great thing to say, but it's truth. I think, and as well, as much as we'd all love to go a season unbeaten, the reality is you're going to have while you're working things out, of course you're going to lose matches, of course you're going to make mistakes, of course things are going to go wrong, and that's how you fix things. You can only fix things when things go wrong, and that's almost a certainty that things at one point will go wrong, and it's how you respond to those things.
Yeah. But I think, it was a very smooth press conference, cool, calm, collected. He was mentioning about Son and Romero. A lot of people are talking about their futures. Obviously, today we did that update with Lacroix and Zabriani, which, we put 2 and 2 together. So if we bring these players, it must be Romero's leaving. There's been a lot of question marks regarding Son. And he said 2 top players. Sonny has been there for 10 years, finally got his well-deserved trophy in the summer. Romero, World Cup winner, Copa America winner twice, very important for us. Both have trained well, set the standards, and both will play tomorrow, and I'm very happy. And yeah, he said as well on the captaincy that Sonny will captain one half of the team and Romero will captain the other half, which we'll get into more in the captaincy a bit later. But is there anything to read into that regarding Romero and Sonny?
Look, at the end of the day, they're here at the moment, so of course they're going to play. I think Son, of course, right now there's no deal in place. Neither of them are close to leaving, as much as there's speculation. Doesn't mean they're definitely going to stay, but it just means for now, while they're here, they're very important players. Of course, if come the end of the transfer window, they're both in the squad, we know they're both going to be very important players for us going forward. So I don't think there's any indication we're going to force them out or anything. So while they're here, of course, they're going to be important players. One interesting thing he did say about their futures, I should say, is when he said in the press conference about them playing tomorrow, he was obviously asked about their future, and he said, well, the fact they're playing tomorrow, for me, is an indication. He said you should take that as an indication of how I see their futures. That's what he said. So is that him just towing the line right now and not revealing anything about doubts about their futures? Because as long as they're not close to a move, they're very much in the squad and very much important parts of the team? Or is that genuine him saying, look, they're here, I want to keep them, they're not going anywhere, and them playing tomorrow is me saying we have no intention of letting these players go? You can look at it either way. It's hard, obviously managers don't want to reveal too much in their press conferences. They keep their cards very close to their chest. Even if they were close to a move, he would probably say something similar. But if you take him at face value, he's indicating these guys. He's saying these guys are part of the squad, and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, it was very similar. I know. I just said don't stop harping back to Ange, but I'm going to harp back to Ange now. And Ange's first few press conferences, he was asked a lot of questions about Harry Kane, and he never once alluded to him leaving. And then once he did leave, he kind of said like he knew all along he was leaving.
Yeah, and obviously he's been played in a couple of preseason games as well. So I think football is a very fast-moving business, and things change very quickly. Today, Atletico are not prepared to pay the money required, blah, blah, blah. Maybe tomorrow they stump up the cash and that all changes. So I think right now, there's no reason not to play them. There's no reason not to see them as captains and big parts of the team.
And then he did speak about the captaincy, and he was asked whether he decided on the Spurs captain this season. He said, "Good question. I haven't decided on that yet. I have a long list of bullet points to get through. Son was captain last season, and tomorrow we'll have 2 45 minutes. Son and Romero, captains in each. I haven't decided on the captain yet." And he added he will pick the captaincy, and it won't be like a kind of vote or anything like that within the squad.
Yeah, which I think Ange picked the captain, if I remember, last year. But anyway.
But they did say that Ange consulted a lot of players, the leadership group or the leading players or the most experienced players in the squad.
Yeah, Frank doesn't say he won't consult anyone. Anyway, that is interesting, I would say, because Son is the captain of the team. He's a very well-respected member of the team. The fact that he hasn't confirmed that he's going to be the captain, does that say that he's either not convinced he's the right person, or he just wants to make his own decision for himself? Or is that an indication of doubts about his future? You can read into that a few different ways. I would have assumed if Son is staying, he'd be the captain, and there would be no doubt about that. The fact that he's saying he hasn't decided, is that just him stamping his authority, saying, look, the captaincy is my decision, he might well just pick Son? Or is he genuinely looking at the situation thinking maybe we might need a new captain? Well, it's hard to know which way he sees it.
Well, we did hear yesterday regarding Son that after the Korean tour, they're going to sit down and talk about his future, properly. So maybe a decision can't be made until that conversation is had.
Right, but the decision about his future or captaincy you're talking about?
Well, both, really. I mean, future, they go hand in hand, don't they?
They do, but while he's here, he's the captain. I guess he's captaining tomorrow, understand that, but it's interesting he didn't just go and say Son's our captain. The
thing is, if he names Son as captain right now, and then all of a sudden after the Korean tour he's gone, and he's got to name another captain. So I think he wants to wait and see how the land lies until after the tour, and then just name that captain.
Fair. I think that's probably, so he's just playing a bit diplomatically. So I guess that does suggest there is still uncertainty about his future.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But so do you think if there was an uncertainty, he would have just said Son's our captain?
That's how I have it in my mind.
That's how you read it. Fair. That's fair reading.
He's talking about injuries as well. 3 players come back from injury. Maddison, he said, is part training with the team, so that's positive. He says Dragshin and Kulusevski are a little bit further away, so I don't really expect to see any of those. Well, definitely not the latter 2, but Maddison even tomorrow.
No, I mean, if he's only part training the team, he won't play. Dragshin and Kulusevski probably sounds like maybe closer to the start of the season or later on as well. We know Dragshin had an ACL, Kulusevski had that big knee injury, so I doubt they'll be rushed back, and we're going to see. I think they're probably going to be missing the whole preseason. But Maddison, maybe in time for the tour, if he's already part training now, maybe come the tour he'll be ready to play. Yeah, I would assume so. He was asked, obviously, about Morgan Gibbs-White. Everyone wanted to hear about Gibbs-White, and he just gave the classic kind of, I'm not going to speak about players at other clubs, basically. That's what he was saying. He said the only 2 players he talks about at other clubs were Messi and Ronaldo. That's it. He doesn't talk about anyone else. We were never going to learn anything about that. The rumours are, at the moment, still with Gibbs-White, it's positive from a Tottenham point of view, but we're still kind of waiting to hear anything concrete. And Frank's doesn't seem the type of character who's going to publicly try and put any pressure on anyone.
Yeah, and he did make a very big nod to Ange Postecoglou as well in the press conference. He says, first and foremost, Ange will forever be a legend here at Tottenham, one of the only 3 who have won a European trophy here, and the first in 41 years. So, I mean, you look at the managers that have won European trophies: Bill Nicholson, Keith Birkinshaw, and now Ange Postecoglou. So, most definitely a legend at this football club.
For sure. I don't think that's in doubt. Unbelievable moment in Bilbao. But look, Frank has been very gracious about Ange. He was obviously in his first interview with Tottenham, he mentioned him, saying, what a fantastic achievement. Obviously, he's reiterated that now. So, look, not too much to say about it, but very nice of Frank to say that.
Yeah, and he did say in his first interview that was on Spurs YouTube and Spurs Play that, he's going to be the beneficiary, basically, of all the good work that Ange Postecoglou did put in of those first 2 years. And I believe that to be true. I really 100%.
do. And not just, first of all, getting in the Champions League and stuff, but also bringing through a lot of these younger players who are going to be even more ready now next season and in a much better position to contribute at a higher level.
He was asked about the expectations at Spurs, and he says, I think it was extremely positive that they won the Europa League. The first aim that we need to be able to compete in all 4 competitions. That has to be the aim. I think 2019 was the last time they managed to compete in different competitions. Obviously, that was when we got to the Champions League final and finished 4th that year.
Yeah. But if he's saying that's the only season we've competed on multiple competitions, because he's saying we got to the Champions League final, we finished 4th that year. I don't think we did much in the cups, but if memory serves. But if that's the first season, how many times have we actually done that?
Well, not.
Is that the only time we've ever done that? If that's the criteria?
Well, there was years under Pochettino where, we got to semi-finals of the FA Cup and we were doing well in the league as well. So that is competing on multiple fronts as well.
But then technically, Poch's first year we finished 5th and got to the final of the League Cup. Does that count?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, we were in Europa League that year.
Yeah, we flopped.
Yeah, we flopped in the Europa League. So,
how far do you think you have to go in a European competition for it to count as competing on? Is it a semi-final or quarter-final? The
expectations grow year on year because it's his first year. I think he'll be given a bit of leeway, trying to rebuild the squad or add to the squad to make it able to fight on all these fronts, which it clearly wasn't built to do last season. So I think maybe this year might be a different story to maybe next year, but I think the idea will be to go deep in every competition, or to try to.
If he's saying
going deep is quarterfinals and beyond, yeah.
So quarterfinals. So under Conte, we finished. We didn't finish top 4. We finished top 4, but we weren't in any cups. The season after, we were in a race for top 4. Then we ran out last 16 in the Champions League, and then we obviously flopped and finished 8th. So that's obviously not competing. So I guess, yeah, I'm just trying to gather what his criteria is for
like last season.
I guess quarterfinals. Yeah.
Last season, we reached past the semi-finals or semi-finals or beyond in 2 competitions, and then we completely flopped in 2 other competitions.
So is that not competing in multiple competitions?
Well, by the very definition, it is.
Technically.
But I think the Premier League has got to be your bread and butter, and the Premier League is the first and foremost what you have to compete in.
I understand that. So obviously he will get some leeway for it being his first season. But I'm just trying to judge him. If I'm trying to just get into his mindset of the criteria of what it means to be competing in multiple competitions. So he says that's the aim. And is it something that is at the aim this season, or something to build towards?
I think it's something to build towards. I mean, that will be the aim this season. But if he does it or not, it'll be very hard to achieve that, in my opinion, because of the way the squad's built. Depends how the rest of the transfer window goes. If we keep building in this way and we keep bringing these kind of caliber players in, the expectations will go up. If we go with what we have, which I highly doubt, then yeah, it'll be very hard to do so. So look, I think the aim for this season probably should be to get into the knockouts of the Champions League, last 16, top 6 of the Premier League, I think should be the aim, and try pick up a domestic trophy.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think we'll take that.
Yeah.
I think we'd all take that, yeah.
Yeah. But you always got aim high, don't you?
Of course. And I'm sure he is. You know, I don't think Frank comes into this job, I don't know, with the feeling, oh, you know what, we finished 17th last season, let's just get top 10. I think he knows this squad should be competing in that top 6. I think he knows that.
Then he was talking about how proud he is to be Spurs manager, and he said, very proud to sit in this chair and be a part of the next chapter in Tottenham's history. I'll do everything every day to hopefully take this club to new heights. That's the ambition. I wouldn't do it if I didn't have big ambitions.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, every manager comes in straight away and says these kind of stuff, isn't it?
Of course.
You wouldn't expect anything else. What else has he said?
He was talking about Kudus as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up the quote on Vinay, and here's the Kudus one. It says, it's a great signing, top work from Daniel, Vinay and Johan in getting in a really good player ahead of pre-season. It gives us unpredictability in the game. His finishing is really good. He's almost the perfect age, not to just perform, but to take to the next level.
Yeah, and that's what kind of we've been saying in terms of why the signing's so exciting. And even though some people, mostly salty West Ham fans, are being negative about it because we've spent a hefty amount of money on a player who didn't have a good season and supposedly down tools and all this kind of stuff. I think when you look at objectively the kind of player he is, how he fits into the squad, what he brings to the table that we don't have, and the age of the player, I think there is so much to be excited about for this transfer. And I think what Frank says is absolutely right. He also mentioned, his finishing. He's been very impressed with his finishing in training. He said as well, that dribbling ability. He was talking about his metrics in dribbling and stuff. So there's a lot of things that people point out about Kudus. So clearly, He's looked at him very carefully, and he decided this is the player that we should bring in. And I think it is a fantastic bit of business, and I think it could end up being a bargain potentially.
Yeah. He was talking about his principles, and he said, I'm very clear in my principles. I want to see the team be brave, aggressive, and attack. Brave is linked to dare is to do. If you are not brave, it is very difficult to achieve anything. Being aggressive is very important, and of course, we need to attack. So, I mean, a lot of fans that maybe weren't on board with Frank when we brought him in were saying, oh, we're just bringing this Brentford manager, all he does is sit back and counter-attack. I mean, that's not what that's saying.
And it's true, but I do remember Mourinho and Conte saying similar things when they came. Like, they didn't say, we're just going to sit back. I remember Mourinho said, oh, I want to play beautiful football. I remember Conte saying, I want to entertain, I want to play good football, and that didn't really happen. But that's not to say it won't happen with Frank. I think Frank knows how to, I think we've seen with Brentford this season, he's wanted to play a bit more of an offensive style, and he's changed up his tactics compared to the much more pragmatic style he was in the first couple of years in the Premier League. So as much as obviously for when you're Brentford manager, if you want to get results, you're going to have to be have that pragmatic side. So he has that. And I'm sure obviously at Tottenham we'll have probably a bit more we'll have more pragmatism than last season we had under Ange, but I'm also sure that he's not going to go into any game thinking I want to draw. I think he's going to attack, he's going to see the talent we have and think we can win every game.
Yeah, I mean, the difference is Ange kind of came into it saying, like, I have my way of playing, and we're going to build the team around that. Another quote from Frank in this press conference was like, I have my philosophies for when we sit deep, I have my philosophies when we press high up the pitch, and all these different things that he was saying. So very much he's got plans for any which way we can play, and it's not just one way or the highway.
Yeah, and that is what we're hoping will stand us in good stead, being a bit more tactically flexible and having different systems and different ways we can switch things up mid-game, which Frank has definitely been known for. So that's what's probably most exciting about that.
Yeah, I agree. He's talking about Lucas Bergvall, and he said that Lucas Bergvall has been very good on the grass. He's trained every session and looks good. I'm very happy with that. So I can't wait to see a bit of Bergvall ball tomorrow.
Yeah, 100%. I think he is just someone, I know he had a brilliant season last year, but I'm so excited about another season of Bergvall and what he can bring, and him going from strength to strength, because this guy has just been on a massive upward trajectory for the last ever before he got that injury pre-Bodo, which was a massive blow. So hopefully he can carry on that trajectory, because if we can get the Bergvall we got basically from January onwards from week 1, that's an incredible prospect.
Yeah. And last but not least, he said on why he joined a club that sacked 5 managers whilst he was at Brentford. And he says, I like to challenge myself. I have the privilege of I have never been sacked before. Well, and he says, that is one of the reasons why I took the job. I get a little bit more risk in my daily life. Coming to a big club, there are pressures. We need to perform because it's me. It's the staff and the players, the staff and everyone we need to do together. I like the ambitions. Everything I do, every decision I have made so far is for the long term. It's not about survival, one game or one year or 18 months or whatever the average is. It's for the long run. So, I mean, he's obviously planning to be here for a long time, and you wouldn't expect anything less.
Yeah, which I think if you're a manager of a club the size of Tottenham, as much as the history of our managers, you have to act in that way. You have to act as if you're going to be here in the long term. I think that's what the club obviously expect. Obviously, you have managers like Mourinho and Conte, who themselves spoke like they wanted to be here for a long time, but their actions didn't really suggest that they did. I remember Conte was always saying, oh, it needs to be a project. He was saying, look at the other guys, they've been in the job for a long time, we're nowhere near that kind of thing. So he was always speaking like he wanted to be here. Kind of said
that, but his contract never suggested that.
That's what I'm saying. His actions speak louder than the words, and his actions never suggested he was committed to the long term. Mourinho as well said something, was saying things similar to the effect, and they probably believed it, but it's about showing it. So I think Frank has shown it, though, unlike Mourinho and Conte, that he can build something stable at a club for over a long stretch of time. Even Ange, that wasn't really what he was known for at his other clubs. He was known for, being somewhere and for a short time and then moving on. So hopefully we can get a bit of stability with Frank. I'd love Frank to be our manager for a very, very long time and be here for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. That'll be a phenomenal, means he's done a great job. But we know at Tottenham it's hard to do that, but let's see if he can do it.
He was also speaking about fans spotting through social media that the team was doing long throw auditions. And he says, I believe it's not only maximising the players' potential and the team's potential, but we also need to do what we can to make sure we have enough threats from everywhere on the pitch. And that one area is set pieces. So, I mean, I'm delighted that we're going to be focusing very hard on set pieces. It's been for too long, probably since Gianni Vio was at the club. And even then, it was just a short stint where we've been really strong from set pieces.
Yeah. I think we were improving from set pieces last season. I think Ange's first season we were terrible, so bad. I think there was an improvement last season, but obviously I also feel like it wasn't something that was a main priority. And obviously we didn't have a set piece coach. We know that we do now. So hopefully those things really improve. He didn't want to give anything away about who impressed or who won the long throw auditions when asked. He kind of kept that close to his chest.
Rumour has it was Kevin Dancer.
Yeah, that's the rumours, which doesn't surprise me, to be honest. But I don't know how much he's going to be starting. But if he, I wonder who would be if he's not on the team. But it would be very interesting if it is a centre back who is going to be taking our long throws, how that changes things from the setups and how that changes things, how we kind of go about doing those kind of set pieces. That's something we've never done before, have a centre back take a long throw and then you have to move someone else to centre back and you have to change things up. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting, but I think these marginal gains, these attention to detail, I think it will help us, that stuff.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's all we're going to react to in the press conference, but all in all, it did leave me feeling positive. to what the season can hold. Obviously, we need to see how the transfer window progresses and everything like that, get Gibbs White over the line and see what can happen from there. But yeah, I left that after watching that feeling really good about the new season.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think there's a lot to be excited about with Thomas Frank, and there's a lot about what he said and how he said it, which is good. Yeah, so looking forward to the game tomorrow.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I'm very excited for tomorrow. Come on, Spurs are back, people.